Time was running out for Bob. He was trapped inside the probe, and after consulting Mission Control several times, they were still no closer to an answer on how to free him. You see, the probe was not meant to hold a Kerbal for this long, and it had been hours since the incident. The capsule's emergency air supply was almost completely used, and there wasn't much air left in his spacesuit. Finally, word came in from Mission Control. They needed to find a way to break Bob out of there. Luckily, Bob had a plan. It wasn't the safest plan in the world, but there was nothing else that they could do. The plan was to push the spacecraft over the crater cliff. With any luck, he could free himself from the wreckage. Needless to say, Mission Control did not like this idea, but there was no other way of freeing him. It was either this or suffocate.
Awesome. Yeah, guidance looks great. About 40 degrees. It looks wonderful. That's it. London Band, turn up on 10K, one say to 10. You got talk to me? Okay, Fat T is coming down. Hello 60. Calling in for performance now.
Miraculously, Bob had pulled it off, and everyone back on Kerbin could breathe again. The crew of the Luna spacecraft would stay on the moon for a little while longer, collecting EVA reports and some more samples. But alas, nothing lasts forever, and they had to go home, but not before planting a flag for all of Kerbin to see. The flag was in commemoration of not only the first steps on the moon, but also the near tragedy and miracle that followed. It was proof to the world, a testament that the Kerbin race was ready for the challenges of space.
Okay, boys, you ready to get off this rock?
Yeah, I'm ready to go home.
Same here, bud. I'm just glad you're still with us.
You're not getting out of buying beers that easy.
Roger that.
What? What's up?
Ooh.
Talk to me.
That's weird. Parachutes won't open.
Ah, crap.
What?
Hang on to something!
The Kerbinauts were lucky to be alive. Their secondary parachute staging malfunctioned, and they crashed into the ocean rather than landing softly. If this mission had proved anything, it was that space travel was going to be tough, but they had proved themselves to be ready for the challenge. With science set to 10%, there wasn't that many choices to choose from when it came to researching new technologies in the scientific community. At present, the ability to control the craft better was of great importance, especially for the landings on the moon. Kerbal scientists and engineers went to work on rebuilding the spacecraft completely, from the top to the bottom. The goal was to find a way to build a better, more efficient spacecraft. 3 unkerbal launches took place, testing out new flight patterns and new designs. During these launches, scientists and engineers both had their triumphs and failures. From the lessons learned from these launches, the Delta One was born. It was a completely off-the-charts new concept for Kerbin's scientists and engineers. With a wider base, it had easier landings and would rather slide across the moon's surface than tip over. The craft also had more fuel and greater range. It also had a tendency to flip the right way around while re-entering. While the spacecraft worked just fine, its delivery system still had problems. Several more unkerbal launches would have to take place before these problems were solved. But finally, the Delta One science probe spacecraft would take its first flight to the moon. But the moon probe wasn't the only craft that needed an upgrade. So did the Luna lander. Using a similar design to that of the Delta One, the lunar lander now had greater range and more power. To test out the new Luna spacecraft, it would be launched unkerbal. This was to test out, of course, any problems that the craft may have had before sending up live Kerbonauts. One of these tests was to see how much fuel was left over. This would give scientists and engineers an idea of whether or not the craft was capable of going to 2 different landed probes to gather more science, rather than just traveling to one. Some problems were observed in the spacecraft, such as the ability to maintain power. A better, more reliable power source would have to be designed. This would be a huge turning point in the history of Kerbin. Massive amounts of funding were now being poured toward space travel. The ability to land on distant moons and possibly planets had grabbed the attention of the nations of the world. With every brave leap into the unknown, more and more technologies were being unlocked. These technologies would benefit all of Kerbal kind. Everything from better materials, to more powerful batteries, to smarter computers, and more reliable light switches. Space travel was starting to make the world a better place. But as we all know, with most of the good things in this world, some things come with a price. And some of these nations that took an interest in spaceflight weren't very friendly.